Welcome, everybody. My name is Aaron Locks. I'm the CEO and founder of the National Academy of Athletics, and I'm really excited today to talk about a topic to help kids fall in love with playing the game that they probably already love. And if the parents just get the heck out of the way, amazing things can happen. But with me is my good friend Andrew Ziemer of Z Soccer fame. Before I introduce him, I want to let you all know, which is kind of interesting. So we've actually known each other since 1989. I mean, you think about that and you go, okay, man, that's a lot of years, right? We go way back. And I'm going to have you introduce yourself in a second. But if you're interested and you want to hear not just this information, but additional stuff we have coming up through the Talk, Teach, Play channel, just click subscribe on the bottom here. We have lots of different topics that we go through, everything helping parents, coaches, players across the board to be more successful as they go down their journey and helping kids in youth sports. But Andrew, do me a favor, give them a little bit of your background. I mean, I could go through it; it would probably be a huge page, but tell them a little bit about your background in soccer and youth sports, and we can then dig in.
Okay, well, thanks, Aaron. I'm super excited to be here too. So, we gotta make the stories a definite part of this interaction.
Absolutely.
I'm getting a little older, so I tend to forget. So you can make up a few things even if you want, and I'll
Love
agree
it.
with you.
There you go.
No, but not to talk like about myself. Like for me, um, it came from the family I was a part of, and our dad had fallen in love with the game actually in England during World War II. And then he came to the East Coast and there wasn't really any soccer. So it was like in his blood, but he was deprived. So we had a bunch of brothers and we lived in the country. And when soccer came around, my dad jumped in and started helping with a lot of great other volunteers to organize the game. So we were sort of in the grassroots and grew up with the North American Soccer League, seeing the best players in the world. So we grew up just like almost like it was like a cult back then if you were really into soccer. And now it's like everyone plays it and it's a different sport. But what we did at a young age is we got over to Europe to visit relatives. And as a family, we set our standard on Europe.
Nice.
And so we really felt like we were always going to be behind, but we could do our best to try to grow the game and do it together with a lot of other people. So I've always had my main passion for the youth.
Yeah.
Currently working at College of Marin too. It's a community college, and it's almost like under 19, under 20, which is still youth.
Yeah.
So I've just had a lot of different experiences, both here in the U.S., also in Europe. But I think the most experience that we got at first was just the environment at our house and the way that we shared a common love for the game to try to get out and help be involved and help other people to be involved and grow. So I don't know, that's what I'll say
No,
for
that's
now.
perfect.
Maybe later I can say something else.
Well, it's funny, but what people don't realize, the lineage from coaches on down. Like, again, I got to work in the NBA and I worked for Coach Wooden and working with those players and all that. But really, if you know youth soccer, soccer development in Northern California particularly, the name Ziemer brothers. You know the name Ziemer, which is wonderful. So let's talk starting from little. Now, again, your kids are between 18, 24, something like that.
Yeah.
Mine are between 16 and 19 now. So let's kind of put our thinking caps and remember back. And I know you're still doing a lot of instruction and teaching that, but what do you think about is the best way to engage kids at the younger ages and get them involved, whether it's soccer or any sport for that matter? Kind of what do you think is the best way to go about that?
Well, I mean, the best is that we always keep in mind the age of the child as a human being. And then we make the programs for those ages in line with that, because that's the most natural. And if we tend to too often structure and create too much competition and travel and stress at a young age, sometimes that's the opposite of what they naturally need. So for me, I think the best thing is close to home
Yeah.
with friends, people they trust, people who understand them, people that care about them,
Yeah.
and just create positive experiences. And if you have enthusiastic people who they trust with them doing the activity,
Yeah.
it's no real tough thing. But when we start to get more in our adult world and we start to make plans, and as parents want to provide the best for our kids, so we work extra hard to provide it, and
Yeah.
we don't want to miss out. So I think in what we do, with maybe not out even knowing it, is that we go against what's the natural way to get them excited. And
You
then
know,
at a certain point, it comes out of the family, and then it gets, into with their peers and at schools and
right.
in programs. And like with us, we do a lot of instruction, not just
Right.
in clubs, but with camps.
Right.
So I think you need good people who they trust, who understand them and their age and what they should be capable of, and
Right.
then find things that they love with the game. You can do it with reading as well,
Right.
and so it works with everything. But I think we have to slow it down a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like sometimes as parents, we all get a little excited, and it's like, man, my kid can kick the ball so great. He's going to play in MLS, and all these things. You go, wait a second, let's take it step by step. One thing that I've had a philosophy is I would rather have my child from age 4 to 18 play and have a love of the game for 14 years than worry about if they're going to play at college or get paid to play or try whatever it is, and instead of focusing on what might happen, because I feel like there's so many life lessons. One of the things that it's funny, so I didn't grow up playing soccer, and it's funny. I remember watching you play at Sonoma State, and well, you guys were you were really good, and it was fun watching just because that's when I started to actually. You're the reason why I started to think, okay, soccer is not just a communist sport, right? You know what I mean? I started looking at it going, it's cool. But you know what I found, which was really cool as a basketball player, is that the movements on a soccer field that you did athletically, they weren't all that different than whether it's baseball or hockey or basketball or whatever else, right? I mean, the movements are kind of the same in the athleticism. So I think when we start talking about getting a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or 6-year-old, how do we take and help them develop as an athlete, but keep it fun through the sport, right? How do we do that, Andrew? Because I feel like what's going on right now is they're so focused on you got to do it the right way and you got to this, that they're sucking the life out of the game of these kids, no matter what the sport is.
Yeah, I mean, I would say once they start, like, most recreation soccer leagues, they
Yeah.
start at like U5 or U6, so it's a
Okay.
4 or 5 year old. There's programs like Kinder Kicks that my
Great
sister-in-law
program. Yeah.
runs,
Great
where
program.
they get in, but and they get them in love with the ball, but it's not really soccer because they're too young.
Yeah.
What the kids need at a young age is they need a lot of movement,
Mm.
and what they also need is free play. Kids in the younger ages need 5 to 7 hours of free play a day. And free means that they have autonomy. They're the one making the choice.
Right.
And to develop creativity, it has to be an original thought from the player.
Mm.
So in those young ages, we need to create spaces for them where they can be successful doing the things that are possible at that age, but including a lot of movement. So tag games, and where the coordination and movement is ingrained into games.
Yeah.
That's
That
what
makes
I
a
would
lot of
say, and it
sense. Yeah.
takes an expert to do that. And what we tend to do is have our experts work with the older kids, or they move on to college. I
Yeah.
think we need to create environments. You can do it really well even with volunteers, but create environments where the kids can get a lot of repetition and a lot of opportunity to engage. In soccer, at least, I would start with 2 versus 2 and 3 versus 3, and we start at 4 versus 4.
Yeah.
So already we make it too complex in their
Yeah.
first year.
It's interesting. I remember one of the things, because when I was playing basketball, I would, dribble the ball all the time. But I didn't translate that mentally into whatever it was until I heard you say the words lots of touches, right? I mean, basically, if you're gonna play soccer, you got to have lots of touches. In football, you got to know. Baseball, you got to know, right? Whatever it is, it's lots of reps. The challenge tends to be that because the sports have become, a lot of philosophers are saying, a lot of people involved, they become overcoached and undertaught, they're not learning the right way to play the game. So how do you teach it? Like, and I know, man, we've talked a lot about this, but let's share it with these folks. The philosophies of teaching the right way and keeping it fun, because you know as well as I do that if it becomes punitive, 65% of kids that play a sport after just 2 seasons in our nation will quit and never go back and play that game again because it's too much pressure to be successful and win, right? Win the games instead of what we know, which is to help them win by developing confidence, and then it becomes more fun because the skill level goes there. So what would you suggest? How do we help them to get that, man?
Well, write this down for another topic we can
Yeah.
go over the fun study, and I'll talk about it briefly. But
Okay.
it was done, I think Michigan,
Okay.
and they asked all types of athletes, different sports,
Yeah.
over a long period of time, and also ones that became successful, some that quit, whatever. But they put into their own words what the kids thought of as fun,
Mm.
and it was like the opposite of what we were delivering them.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I could see that. Oh, that's a good one.
so
Yeah, we have to check
and
that out.
like championships and what they called swag
Yeah.
and travel, those were like out of 13 categories. Those were
Yeah.
like 9 through 13. And like second was like they wanted a fair environment. They didn't like it when their friend didn't get to play also, for example.
Ah.
So there's like a lot of things I don't want to go too far off into
Yeah.
that.
No, I think
But
that's yeah.
but if you ask, okay, you and I get a group, right? And we're
Yeah.
going to co-coach them at a camp,
All right.
next week. If we ask them, what do you want to do? What are they going to want to do?
They want to play games, scrimmage, and
They
play.
want to play games.
They want to play
So
games.
if it's
Yeah.
basketball, they want to shoot at the basket and they
Yeah.
want to play games.
Yeah.
Soccer, they want to shoot on the goal and they want to play games.
Absolutely.
Okay, and there's a crazy one that wants to maybe go in the goal. We try to make all of them go in the goal,
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay.
because then they become a better shooter. So what they need, they need a lot of very varied experiences with the sport.
Hmm.
Okay, in a loose but organized way where they can express creativity, where they can try things, where they can explore and be confronted with problems, like to
Yeah.
solve to
Yeah.
learn how to solve it. What we're doing is we're going in, we're structuring everything, we're verbally explaining explicitly about the techniques and this and that in
Right.
camps or programs or these paid coach environments. And then what happens is the kids don't even understand how it relates to the game.
Yeah.
But also motivation is really high when you have a combination of success and failure. So
Yeah.
we have to let the kids fail and explore. Like, if we get a 2 versus 1, Aaron, and we don't
Yeah.
get a shot off, something's
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
If we do it a few times and then we see our buddy do it right, then we get eager to learn the solution. What
Right.
we do is we get them in a line of 2 against 1, and we give them 6 solutions. Let them explore in the game at a young age, and they need to do it a lot. That's the
You
key.
know what's funny
Yeah.
about that? I know for a fact, because I know when I grew up, we just played down the street with our buddies. This is how we figured out who was going to be on the team. And if there was the older kid, okay, if you get him, well then I get the next 2 picks. Well, I don't want to
Yeah.
deal with Lumpy or whatever. But we figured that out for ourselves, and that's missing from sports in general because it's become so organized and so structured that at 6 years old they're going to different states to play. And I guess I don't know your philosophy on that. I know we've talked a little
I
bit.
agree with you completely. And in fact, right now I'm working in Roseville Youth Soccer Club. We
Okay,
have like
yeah,
4,500 members, 500 that are competitive, and then 4,000 recreation, all volunteer coaches.
yeah,
And we are creating an environment slowly but surely with our philosophy, vision on learning, methodology, but we let the kids work it out.
I like it.
So what we have to try to do is step back and observe more. And
Mm.
our biggest job as a coach in the younger ages is creating the environment and allowing the kids to experience it. Kids learn by experiences. And the ones who really like it, they'll play more with the ball. So they might have better ball handling or
Right.
skills or more ball comfort. But in young ages, it's not the time to put too much pressure. But if you want to be really good at something, You know,
Yep.
it helps if you do it a lot also.
Right. So,
So
so
there's a
I mean,
balance, you
obviously,
know.
you got to find a way. But you know, when I got to work with some pro players like from Major League Baseball, talking with them, the one thing that they really said is what a parent must help is the kid to develop a passion for it, because ultimately the reason why you were as good as you were was because you had a passion to practice when no one else was watching. You wanted to be the best, right? And you wanted to go through and practice over and over, whether it's kicking or trapping or whatever the skill is. You just wanted to do that. And I think what happens sometimes as parents, if we want it so much more than the child, right, then we're pulling them there instead of kind of creating that space like you talk about, which I think is so important. So how do you get what point, or how do you differentiate between the low key kind of fun approach that we've talked about, right, versus, okay, you know, we got to get it right and go forward. Your whole family, your kids, they all play soccer. They've all played in college and all over the place and keep going. So what's been the secret? What's been the secret recipe? You know, besides obviously helping them with their passion for it. You know, you started when you're young and got them going. So what's the secret?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. It has to come from within. You know, for me, I knew at a young age what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
and I I had a quote that my dad shared with us. I don't remember how much he shared it, but I grabbed onto it. It was, "You can be a jack of all trades and a master of none."
Mm,
So for me, I wanted to be the best at soccer, you
yeah.
know, and all my friends weren't like that, but they loved the game also. And so I think in the younger ages, um, I don't know, let's just put it this way. If we both sign up our kids for baseball or soccer or whatever sport you and I teach comfortably,
Right.
or anyone like us who's experienced,
Yeah.
and you know, you get another kid and he gets on a team, and that team got a phone call or an email saying if somebody doesn't step up, you know, this team's not going to have a coach. And a lot of really good coaches got started that way.
Yeah. Right.
And I don't think that volunteer parents have to know that much.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do a great job naturally because they're raising someone of that age.
Mm,
They just need the right guidance. But the bottom line is, in the younger ages, you need people who can create an environment and make the kids also feel good about themselves,
yeah.
and talk to them in a way almost like storytelling, but to
Mm,
get them to dream. What do kids do when they're young? They dream. Get them to dream. And then you could start to integrate the age appropriate life lessons. But the first one is always do your best, be respectful, work well with others, like in a team
yeah.
sport.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
can get them
Totally.
doing those things, and then you can get them to dream, and they can, you know, have somebody that they can dream about being, whether it's Michael Jordan or Messi, or it doesn't matter.
Right.
Then they start to spend more of their own time. And as a parent, you could say, rather than saying you need to go practice, like, hey, you want to go kick the ball around?
Yeah.
Which 5, 6, 7, 8 year old doesn't like to go play with their dad or their mom?
Right.
You know, or hey, let's go out and get some exercise as a family. What do you think? We bring out the cones and play a 2v2?
Yeah.
They'll probably say yes. And then for more coordination, take them to the jungle gym when they're young and let them climb all over it.
Mhm.
You know, so they need experiences, but a lot of them to get, um, you know, their bodies develop the proper way, because
Yeah.
the more coordinated you are,
Yeah.
and that happens in development mostly in the younger ages,
Yeah.
the easier you'll learn technique later,
Yeah.
and you'll progress better. If you have deficiencies in your coordination, balance, all that stuff, then you're when you hit puberty and you start to grow,
Yeah.
you know, you can't gain anything in that area at all, and later it's even harder. So a lot of fun, close to home experiences. Encourage staying over after practice, going early,
Yeah.
sleepovers, like take them to games, college, high school, doesn't matter.
The more exposure to sports in general, I mean, to me, there's no better life skill teaching tool than youth sports. And I don't care what sport it is, right? It doesn't matter if it's soccer, baseball, basketball. If it's a team sport, they're going to learn success and failure and all the things that we've talked about, you know, and going forward. So the one that is happening now, and I should probably remind everybody, if you're enjoying this conversation, and we're going to have some more, make sure you like the page here and follow us so you can gather more information as we go forward. But one thing that is important to me that I think about is I see this. Here's an example. I love steak, right? I mean, I'm a New York strip kind of guy, but if you made me eat steak, and said you have to eat steak 365 days a year, I'm going to become a vegan, man, and I don't necessarily want to do that, So where's the balance point that you think, because you've seen it? I mean, I know you've seen it with kids that have come through, between helping them to fall in love with it, giving them the exposure, and also giving them enough time away from the organized and structured components so they can stay in love with it, so they can do it. Because what I'm seeing, and we're getting a lot of it, is that burnout factor, right? So how do you approach that? Because I know you're doing everything from club all the way down, from college all the way down to little guys, right? I don't think anybody does it better than Andrew Ziemer in terms of how she teaches kids to fall in love with soccer and just moving their bodies. But then the next step is they start playing, and now it's competitive, right? And so how do you get to that point? I know parents are freaked out. If my kid takes one season off or misses 2 weeks, they're going to lose their skills or whatever. But the other side is the burnout. So where does that balance come in? How do you balance that out, man?
Yeah, it should be like in the club philosophy. So like in soccer, for example, you have a technical director who's
Okay.
responsible for the vision of the soccer, how it's going to be taught, what
Okay.
type of player you want to develop. But in the younger ages, I think we could use COVID as a wake up call, like a pause moment.
Okay.
And you can look at the fun study and the dropout rate, and you can look at all these, even the kids that are playing sports at a high level.
Yeah.
A lot of them are not okay mentally,
Mm.
and so there's a lot of pressure, and people like they would like I don't know how many times I've been, what, your kid stopped playing soccer? A Ziemer's allowed to do that?
Yeah.
I never made my kids do anything.
Yeah. Right.
And they all took breaks, and they love the game now in their own way.
Right.
But it had to come from within. So for me, I think rather than looking at like an outcome in the future,
Yeah.
and like college or whatever it is, pro, or maybe it's somebody like myself. I got injured, and I don't think I ever played at the highest level I was capable of. And part of that is maybe for other reasons that I see, discipline and some, I was doing
Yeah.
too much. I was already coaching 3 teams and
Yeah.
trying to
Right.
play. Like, I look at it and I'm going, wow, no wonder why I got broken. But the kids need to just play in more of a natural way, and the environment and the way that the adults interact together
Yep.
on behalf of each kid, that's important.
Yeah.
And we need to realize that the way that it's been done, maybe the last 20 to 30 years,
Yeah.
is going the opposite direction of what science and the facts, when we talk to the kids and get their
Yeah.
perspective of what they really want, and let the kids experience it more naive when they're young, up to like age 11, 12. And
Yeah.
at age 13, 14, the kids start to become a little bit more, they can think on their own. They have some years of experiencing it,
Yeah.
or they can have an adult conversation, because that's what adults do with kids, is they have adult conversations with
Right.
them, at age 13. And, and then you can see that if they have a love and enthusiasm for the game still, and they didn't drop out,
Right.
that those ones have a chance of what we both agree is the number one goal, which is a lifelong love
Yes.
for
That's
sports.
it.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
That's
That's
why
it.
we're sitting here today.
That's
Not
exactly right.
because you played NBA and I played Bundesliga, because neither one of us did.
You're right.
When
Exactly.
we were dreaming, we were there,
Yeah.
that's where we were headed. So give every kid the chance to dream. And then when they start to see what the game means for them, what their potential is, what their other interests are, and how much time they want to dedicate, then you have those conversations at a 13-year-old level, a 14-year-old level. They need guidance. So, that's
That's
for
good.
me.
And another cool place for them to get guidance when you talk about that, because when you're playing on a team in a competitive environment, you're on a league, right? Then you've got practice once or twice a week for an hour, whatever it is, and then you compete in your game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we've talked a lot about this, the importance of getting them in the right type of training, whether it's clinics, particularly camps, because of how much they can gain, and they can develop the friendships and learn and get more touches and get all these other experiences from professional coaches that are trained to teach. And for some reason, at least for my daughter, I remember soccer was not her favorite at first, maybe because, she was a softball and a basketball and all that. But then she went to a camp, and it might have been one of your camps, and she kind of started to fall in love with soccer. And I think it was because the way it was taught, and she got for the whole week. She got to touch the soccer ball and play from 9 to 3. She was exhausted, but she came home. She was like enthused, and she got more right in that amount of time. So
well, that's what your whole camp is built for,
right?
Is to teach kids while showing them how to love the game,
right?
How to interact with others, and you have like a 4 or 5 day period. So like if you did 9 to 3, like what we used to do all the time in the day,
right.
that's 30 hours. That's like an entire season of coaching. So it's not just the instruction, but it's the games. And what I think is great about camps also is that they mix with different kids, boys, girls, olders, younger. Sometimes it's the luck of the draw. Like we were doing a camp recently, and it was like a 6-week camp where the kids could come on Sunday or Monday or both.
Okay.
And a lot of the kids were beginners. A lot of them were like really in love with the game, but they hadn't played a lot. So they played normally just in the fall.
Yeah.
So they could see and think the game, but their technique needed to be developed. And we worked a lot on that. But they all wanted to be there, even when the ages were different.
Nice.
So what we do as adults, we're like, oh, my kid's too good for that level. He's wasting his time. I'm going to call the director. It's like, no, that's the best thing for him. On that day, he's going to learn about leadership. Okay.
Right.
And then when he moves up, or he plays around the corner like it used to be against the older kid, he's going to get beat up. Maybe he's going to have to stand up for himself, or he's going to have to learn empathy, because the next time he goes back and he's the leader, he's going to remember what it felt like to be the worst one.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like all these things that kids will work through in a natural way, and they have to go through them to learn them. And in camps, we have the capability with our experience to create like positive lessons out of negative situations
in a safe environment, right? Because we
in
can
a safe environment
where so that they get the experiences, and if it's done right, our the National Academy of Athletics, we're trying to create confidence, optimism, and personal growth, right? That's the deal. And I know we've talked about this, and so we're using sport as the vehicle, but ultimately, like you said, man, that's where we want to go. All right, so I got a couple other things that I want you to talk a little bit about, and I love this concept of player-centric training. Now, keep it simple for these guys, especially because I don't know the level of people that are going to be coming through, if they're first-time coach or teachers or whatever. But I love that concept, man. Can you give us a little bit of that?
Well, I mean, I first lived in Europe more as a coach, even though I was playing in Holland in 1994, and I did a 4-month course, and they were already like far ahead in the world for youth education and soccer.
Okay.
And we found that out because Benjamin had done a 6-month course while living in Germany, and it was more for like amateur professional. And he kept asking about youth. They said, go to the Dutch Federation and to Ajax. So I went there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For 4 months. Yeah. But the bottom line is player-centered is that you put the needs of the player always first. Okay. And it's hard to do. And what we've been, me personally, I've evolved, but when I first got into coaching, I was definitely coach centered.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm young and I'm coaching this team, and they're even paying me a little bit to be here. I better win. Right. I better talk a lot. I better show everybody how much I know and tell the kids constantly right after the play. Yeah. Like, no, the kids don't want to be interrupted during a game. You have to observe, take notes or mental notes, and then ask a question later and see how they experienced it. That's player-centered.
Yeah.
Coach centered is telling them at the moment what to do, because if they make a mistake, you might lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what they need to do is make the mistake.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
it's,
Boy.
I love it. It's like putting their needs first, and good coaches do it anyways. I know
Man.
one of your biggest mentors is Wooden. Come on,
Yep.
read anything about him. He served the players,
Yep.
bottom line. He
Boom.
served the game and the players.
Yeah.
And that's why he was so good.
You know what's great about this is it even goes further because parent, business leader, uh, whatever it is, man, teacher, it really is. If you can put it back into those we're serving, that's I think why we've been 30 years later,
So,
whatever, we're still having the conversations, whatever. It's really
wait, let's just
yeah,
talk about like 5, 6, 7 year olds, maybe even 4.
yeah,
Okay. So we're working on soccer with them, right?
yeah,
And they all have a ball, and I'm on my knees in the goal, and I'm making sure they can all score on me. Or
absolutely,
I'm
yeah,
trying to get them to kick the ball from their hands, juggle it once, and catch it. We call it
yeah,
kick and catch. What do they want when they do it well? What do those kids want? What do they need? Recognition.
recognition and love. That's right.
You know what I mean? So I did it. I did it. So I tell them, if you do it, say I did it. But most of them, when they're really little, they want you to see them do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
You
right.
know what I
Yeah,
mean? So you
yeah,
have to keep your sharp eye. Yes, that's good, Aaron.
yeah,
Try it again. Hey, it's not going to happen every time, but when it does, make sure you celebrate it, and you get them, teach them to how to have excitement for achievement, but also teach them that you might do it wrong 29 times, and on the 30th, you get it right. So anyways, I think the kids we know exactly when we raise our kids what they
yeah,
need from us as
yes,
parents.
yeah,
That's what the coaches need to be able to provide to make
yeah,
it player centered
yeah.
or more player centered.
Very cool.
And it doesn't mean that it's not once in a while coaches centered, because the
No,
coach
yeah,
has to guard the parameters of
right.
the experience, the philosophy. Like with you start on Monday in a camp, and it builds up to the final day, and all the lessons are ingrained in there, but the lessons are happening organically, and then it just evolves.
Well, and
That's
it's amazing to me that we forget sometimes, and I'll leave this kind of as a point for them. I feel like if you're a coach, a parent, whatever, leader, business owner, manager, that there's a time for directions and corrections, right? Because you have to give the guidance, and there's a time to let them fail. Joe Montana, quarterback, fail fast, fail forward. Let them figure how to pick themselves back up. They will, they will. And sometimes it's tears, and you got to have the conversation and say, okay, I understand, but hey, it's not that bad. Let's try it again. And we have to do that. And I think we've forgotten sometimes. Some people have forgotten because we're so worried about the end result and rather the journey, not to get too deep, right? But to enjoy the journey, because man, I played competitive basketball in a league till I was 52, 53 years old, till my niece said, dude, stop. You know what I mean? And I said, okay, but wouldn't it be great to develop that lifetime love and all those lessons that I know that you have brought forward to do that. So let me ask you this: if people that are checking our channel out want to get in touch or have a chance to reach out and get more information from you, is there a place they can find you to follow up more, find out
Yeah,
more?
I'm going to do it with you.
Do it with me. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they
I love it.
contact you, and then you contact me.
I love
No,
it.
I'm
Perfect.
joking,
Yeah.
but I'm open to doing more stuff. Like I
Yeah.
can give my email, of course.
Okay.
But I'm trying to work on several projects right now in
Okay.
the youth game,
All right.
and to try to. We talked about this, and I think it's even in our notes. So I'm going to
Yeah.
forward to this point.
Okay.
First, you talked about player centered, and then the
Right.
other one was reality based.
Right.
So in Europe, they set a lot of the trends for the development of the game,
Yeah.
and that's not to discredit the other parts of the world, because South America and Central America are strong, and Asia's opening up. There's areas of Africa, so the whole world's always progressing. But
Right.
the Champions League soccer is considered like the best players in the world competing against each other, because they're not all from Europe.
Right.
But so that a lot of the trends come from there. But there's a um, organization called UEFA, and then
Right.
FIFA.
Okay.
But UEFA takes the best from all the countries,
Mm-hmm.
and they do research and they share information, and a lot of their philosophy and methodology filtered up to them and then down or out to the rest of the world. But the French and the Belgians and the Dutch and the Germans are really progressive at the moment, but they're doing a lot of pilots and changing the structure of soccer, especially in the younger ages. And what they're realizing, based on what we just talked about philosophically about how to get kids in love with the game early and all that, they need to play the game, not do drills.
Right.
So they have a reality base, which means that it has the game inside it. And then for the grassroots level, which is basically defined as all levels except for professional.
Wow.
So even all these clubs where they're paying a lot of money to play, that in the rest of the world, they're still considered amateur or grassroots.
Right.
They start the kids out on a play, practice, play methodology.
Mm.
So they start the practice with a game.
Yeah.
And there's hidden learning in there.
Totally.
So you don't coach at all, but it's difficult to do it well. So most people are like, oh yeah, let the game be the teacher. The coach doesn't want to do anything. They got to be on top of them. They just don't want to organize a practice. But what a lot of coaches do is just throw them out there. But it's really a specific methodology, and it takes experience to be able to create a practice that the game is in it. Right. And I'll get to that, what that is. And then you practice. So you basically experiencing the situation in a game-like way. Yeah. And then through that experience, you identify something. As a coach, you already identified it. Yeah. So that's why you made the plan. But then with the kids, you ask them questions about how did it go? Did you how did you succeed? How did you fail? Whatever. Okay. And then you give another part of the practice where they actually learn the solution, but without us giving them the solution.
Right.
So you put them in maybe a modified situation that's game-like still.
Yep.
But maybe it makes it possible to still fail, but also succeed. And then in the end, you go back to the final game, which could be the same game as the beginning or a progression with higher numbers. So for basketball, it could be you start with a 3v3, and then you do like a 2 versus 1, and then you end with the 5v5, depending on the age. So I think that it's game-like. The kids love it. So they're scoring goals or shooting baskets right when they arrive at practice.
I love, getting them, it's funny. So as we do it at the National Academy of Athletics a lot is as we bring them in is we give them that free opportunity to just kind of mill around and shoot around and feel comfortable with the ball and talk with their friends and communicate and kind of still be a kid, right? But they're still doing pieces. And then we get them into a little bit of a competitive environment. It's funny though, Andrew, when I mention competitive environment, people start to freak out a little bit. It's like, we're not just making them get after it, but they have, if we're going to play, then they have to learn to become competitive. They want to try to make the shot or they want to try to hit the ball. That's competing to be successful. That's a very important life skill, right? And then we progress going forward. And then that's where our talk, teach, play comes in, because we always end on play, right? You always want to end where they're having a blast, and that's what they leave practice with, where they just had a total time. Well, look, man, we're running out of time, but man, I enjoyed it. I'm gonna definitely, we'll be able to circle back. I want to remind everybody, if you do want to catch up with Andrew, you want to give your email address? Is that the best one for you to reach out to?
Sure. It's Andrew Ziemer at googlemail.com. So Ziemer, Andrew Ziemer at googlemail.com.
Obviously, you can reach out to us through the National Academy of Athletics. You can catch us on social media. Hopefully, you'll subscribe to the channel and get a chance to follow up and get additional information from us as we go forward. And, to me, Andrew, anytime I get a chance to talk sports with you, man, we can wrap it out and go forward from there. The one thing I always try to remind everybody when you're coaching kids, parents, and you get them out there is going back to your thing, man, player-centric. I love it. Reality Bells training. There's some really good information. But for us at National Academy of Athletics, it's really about help the kids understand and encourage them to play hard and have fun. Appreciate everybody's time today. And Andrew, we'll see you soon.
Next Friday?
That's it. Let's do it.
Let's do it, man. Fridays are good. Okay. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew.